Hi guys, I am Ibigandscary and I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay. This time it's a Zerg versus Terran. The red Zerg in the top left corner is Lycanthrope, which I believe means werewolf. And we have the blue Terran in the top right corner, FluffyJr. Both of these players are high masters or mid masters, depending on your opinion of what actually constitutes high and mid, but I know Fluffy is high by any definition at all. And we are on Antigua Shipyard, pretty common map. Middle choke leading down the ramp to the natural. Easy to take because of the only way up is this large ramp. Not the easiest thing to wall off, but it's pretty easy to hold with a well-placed bunker, maybe a couple spines. Third is usually down here. Much more exposed due to the destructible rocks having two different ways up, but still that ramp faces the ramp coming down from the natural, so it's a pretty short distance, easy to reinforce. Only other interesting thing about this map is the two high yield expansions, very exposed, but if you can have the map control to take it, then you can get rewarded in a extreme way. Fluffy is in an awkward position because his third is actually towards the enemy and is much more exposed by air than that would be normally. He might consider expanding down here into the bottom right corner, maybe even taking a hidden expand in one of the mains, but that is his prerogative. We can see that Lycanthrope, I'm gonna have to go by Lycan for him. Lycan is taking fast expand, fast because there is no spawning pool down, even though it's 16 supplied, still in my opinion fast. Fluffy is going by the more traditional way, dropping a racks and sending out a SCV on 16 supply for some scouting. He is saving up some money. You can see he's got 200 already. He might be using that to spend on a fast expand. Here we go. That SCV is getting in position. He's going to drop it once he hits 400. He's already mined some minerals. It's a good use of time. Lycanthrope throws down his spawning pool. They'll both pop, the hatchery and the spawning pool, at pretty much the same time. Fluffy's grabbing his expansion. So we won't see any heavy aggression out of either player. Maybe Lycanthrope will spawn out a couple of Zerglings just to poke around a little bit to see what Fluffy's doing. Once he sees the command center, he might commit to some more aggression, but because both players expanded, and we can see Lycan's grabbing the third already, it's going to be quite a while before we see any aggression out of either player, which is good. I like long games. You should like long games too. They're our friend. It's not very often that you see a game go super long. You get to see all the units. You get to see several different tactics. Nothing gets me more excited than a tech switch. So I'm excited. You should be excited too. Both hatcheries throwing down queens at pretty much the same time. This will be helpful because the larva injects will be at the same timing window, meaning that it's easy to sync them up and easier to stay up on top of it. A factory being built and a reactor going down on the barracks means that the factory is probably going to switch with the barracks, pump out a couple of Hellions for some harassment. That harassment is going to be very effective if Fluffy scouts this third and realizes that the Lycan has been very greedy. SCV is coming in. He's seeing the fast expand. It doesn't look like he's going to make it up to the third as he goes down to the queen, but again, he's got an orbital. He might scan it. He might send in another SCV. He might send in a couple of those Hellions just to check it out before they come in and try to hit this probe line. With Lycan having three different mineral lines going at the same time, his saturation at any one of them is going to be significantly less. It looks like Fluffy doesn't quite know what he wants to do with these add-ons as he misplaces that bunker on that reactor and takes the factory off the reactor, and he's still creating Hellions. I guess he just wants to do significantly more aggression with the Marines, wanting to have that barracks on the reactor and then two more barracks coming up. We'll see the Marine production kicked into overdrive as the engineering base coming down. He's gonna commit more to upgrades for that. Because of the third that's a pretty good decision. Hellions, like I said, they'll be less impactful with the saturation being less, but they'd be more effective because there's multiple places for them to poke, and Lycan's going to have a harder time denying that aggression. But with multiple Marines being pumped out at the same time, and then these 2 tech labs coming down on these barracks, we'll see many upgrades being produced for the Marines, and they'll be very effective at just pressuring Lycan. Still 2 Hellions coming out, not an overall intimidating force, but if it's joined by a couple more Hellions, and we can see 1 more is on the way, then Lycan might have to get a little bit more sheepish with his defense. Right now he's got enough Zerglings, he's got several spine crawlers up as far as defense goes. So Fluffy having good instincts there, poking in with his Hellions, not enough Hellions to make it past the spine crawler and deal some damage to the Queen. And there's just not enough drones here right now for that AoE attack from the Hellions to do enough damage to justify the expense of running them by that spine crawler. So it's a good pullback for him. We can see a Roach Warren going down. Lycan's expecting more Hellions as he's morphing in his hatchery up to the next level. Overlord coming in just as a suicide scout. He's going to see the engineering bay researching something. He's going to expect heavy ground unit play. Sees the dual tech labs. Is going to assume that there's 2 different upgrades going, combat shields and stem, while level 1 ground is finishing up. These Marines are going to look very intimidating in a couple of minutes. You can see speed, ground, and armor going for the Zerg, which is great. With what he spotted and those multiple Marine upgrades, this is a good play. The Spore Crawler, just denying those drops. 1 drop at the right moment can decimate an entire probe line, especially if it's whenever the army is moving out. So Spore Crawlers, excellent idea. Very nice positioning of them too, behind that smoke, with an Overlord there to spew some creep. These Marines are going to push out. Yeah, I mean, it's an intimidating army right there. If they take down these, I don't think even with these 30 Zerglings coming up, it's going to be enough to deal with this comfortably. We might see this hatchery go down. Spinecrawler trying its darndest, takes out one of those Hellions. These Marines find that perfect cubby, denying the Zerglings the surround that they need to deal with this. And Fluffy's going to hang on this wall all the way around. Stem wears off, but he re-stems and just deals with these Zerglings again. They do a significant amount to the numbers. A lot of those Marines go down, but so does that Queen, and these drones are forced to pull back. That Spinecrawler's still up though, so that's going to limit the Marines' ability to chase down these drones and do that economic damage, which is really what Fluffy wants to do here. At the same time, we can see an Overlord's gotten into position, spewed some creep up here, and we have a command center coming in. Those Marines finally went down to the swarm of Zerglings, but 54 to 54, those drones there should be a lot more drones to keep up with the income that Fluffy's got. He's off of 2 bases, and he's still matching a little bit behind Lycan, who's got 3, but when he grabs this 3rd, which is gonna happen, that Overlords is gonna have to get out of dodge soon, because these Marines are gonna move in and chase it off, and there it goes. Fortunately, speed was up, which is good news for him. Infestor Pit's down, researching that pathogen glands. We haven't seen a lot of roaches, which is surprising, but it looks like he's saving up that gas to create more and more tech. So Hive is on the way, 2 gas. It's yet to be grabbed down here, but he is mining fully off of these 2 bases, which is good for him. 3rd base is getting ready to be obtained by Fluffy as he throws down 3 bunkers to pseudo wall off that area. Another factory which now has a tech lab, and he's producing siege, and many more bunkers means that we're going to see a heavy Marine and siege tank army, a couple medevacs in there for drops and healing. Very common and effective build, especially against Zerg. Zerglings taking down this destructible wall just for an added wall off. You don't want to get siege tanks here. And then you have some Marines to dart up, hit that high ground, and then come back into that corner, and that can be quite a bother. But with this wall down, those Zerglings can reinforce that area, especially with a not a hidden fourth, but a fourth in an awkward position going down. It'll be difficult for him to reinforce that even with those rocks down. It's still quite a long walk. So Lycan's probably hoping that that's going to remain hidden. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Level 2 armor for infantry on the way, as well as attack. 2 more reactors going down on the barracks, while tech labs going down on the factory, so that the siege tanks can get mainlined out. See an Ultralisk cavern going up. That's something I really like about Lycan. He is not building all of his tech structures in his main base. That's a great idea. You can see the hives down in the natural. All 3 of the main tech structures that he's built are out in the natural. It's easier to defend there from drops. That's what he's really worried about, is that snipe drop of 2-3 medevacs filled with marines, dropping off a bunch of units and sniping some tech structures and really setting you behind on your ability to macro. So if you position them here and the hive, yeah, it makes it a little bit more exposed to straight up aggression by an army, but it still protects you. It affords you some extra protection is all I'm saying. Adrenal glands going down the way for the Zerglings. Zergling and Fester, pretty good at dealing with large bundles of marines, and they're fast enough to close the distance to the siege tanks without taking too much damage, but they require a lot of macro to keep up with that amount of units. We see 2 medevacs being filled up. We might see that attempted drop. I did not see a scan go down. I'm not sure. He does know that the tech structures are down there, which is pretty good scouting on his part, and it looks like these medevacs are going to go down and check for hidden expands and also take out any overlord spewing creep. That's a pretty good play. See some ultras on the way. We see some ultra upgrades. The ground upgrades that Lycan's already gotten for the Zerglings is going to do wonders for the Ultralisks that are coming out. They're going to benefit from all those upgrades, and also the numerous Zerglings that Lycan has already created are going to benefit from this Baneling nest coming up. And those Banelings are going to be great, especially coupled with the fungal growth in dealing with the marine ball right here. Both players are content to macro right now. It looks like Fluffy is getting ready to move out. He's max supplied. Now would be the time. He really doesn't want Lycan to get a huge number of critical units and a large reserve. A couple infestors throwing down chain fungal growths to take out these marines. This is not what Fluffy had intended to happen, but he definitely discovered that hatchery. He's going to assume that that one's there. Maybe doesn't know about this one, but he can assume that it's there too. Lycan is in a very strong economic lead right now, but even with those mules, their ability to mine off of those mineral patches, it's pretty neck and neck with sheer amount of units being created at one time. You can see 103 drones. That's a lot of supply that's wasted on drones, and what Lycan really wants to happen now is to get a large bank and then create a wall of crawl, and there we have a bunch of spine crawlers on the way right now to free up some of that supply. He needs to use that supply on units, or he needs to just constantly throw his army into Fluffies to make it so that he can constantly create more units. One way or another, he needs to press his advantage, especially while this army is exposed in this middle ground. It's an excellent place to either do a run by up into this third, or maybe just cut this army in half with some Baneling drops or a couple of heavy-headed Ultralisks. Looks like Fluffy's going to make it unharassed into the bottom left. Lycanthrope knew that they were headed that way because of those creep tumors. Zerglings rush in, do some excellent damage to the siege line. They had great access there. They succeeded in taking down a couple of siege tanks before Fluffy could pull back. If I was in his position, I would have committed more to that attack to try to take down all those siege tanks, but this is why Lycan is in a Masters. He's taking down these rocks, and he's going to rush up into this third metaplanetary fortress, but that's not going to be enough to stop the attack. At the same time, Fluffy taking down one base. He's moving up to the fourth. He'll take that down too, no problem at all. But Fluffy is losing his third, which is a larger hit than Lycan just got dealt. Lycan still has 2 bases mining. It looks like Fluffy is pretty much done with his main. and this secondary is looking rather depleted. So if Lycan can continue to deny mining from that expansion, then he's in a much better place than Fluffy. 50 Zerglings on the way. We'll see if they get spent up here in trying to take out this wall, or if Lycan is content to come back and deal with this army. It's a scary army to deal with, especially with all those tanks. 6 of them. If they get into siege mode, they can do some absolutely incredible damage, especially to the Zerglings. We'll see those numbers drop very quickly. You can see that absolutely nothing's being created by Lycanthrope, even though he's got 2,500 minerals. Finally, he's catching up on that micro, cranking out 6 Ultralisks, but he's probably spending all of his APM up on this battle. Last Ultralisks are going to get taken out just as Fluffy's army arrives back as the cavalry. Really, Fluffy could have cleaned this up completely and then could have pressed his advantage here, but he just would have met with that wall of crawl, a bunch of hidden infestors, and a couple of banelings. These banelings had better not continue onward unless these siege tanks don't. Oh, some baneling landmines. I love seeing that. And really good placement too, nice and wide. And definitely in an area that Fluffy's going to have to walk over eventually. If he has the presence of mind, maybe he'll build a siege tank. Maybe he'll just die a horrible explosive death. It looks he just barely carts over it. I wish Lycan was looking right now, because those banelings are in an excellent place. He needs to unburrow them, deal some damage, especially with those marines right on top of it. It looks like he's just preparing, waiting for these 50 Zerglings to pop out. But tension, man. Tension right here. He selected them. He blew them up. That is great. That was really good placement, too. And good timing. Fluffy just a couple seconds late on the scan, throwing it down. That was a pretty good hit. He probably wanted all of these Marines to be positioned over it. But I don't think he was going to get that even if he waited longer. And if he did wait longer, it probably would have resulted in all of those banelings just get shot by the Marines as the scan went down. This army definitely looking maxed. He's getting up there at Zerglings and banelings and ultras. The infestors are positioned down on by the ramp. They're kind of exposed there, especially if these siege tanks decide to reposition, or these siege tanks decide to reposition, or maybe these Marines decide to reposition. Anything moves, those infestors are pretty much done. But it looks like Lycan's on top of the ball again, reinforcing that position with a couple of fodder Zerglings and an Ultra or two. Fluffy doing that slow push. These 3 siege tanks are forward to do some damage to the spine crawlers. They've succeeded in taking out a couple. At the same time, Fluffy's retaken that expansion with a normal command center. He's going to begin to boost up again on his income as both naturals have been mined out. Lycan's taken his 4th again, and his 3rd is continuing to mine, though the saturation's down a little bit. Neither player's been able to take and hold the expansions that they need to just overpower the other player. Right now, Fluffy's got a really heartily defended forward position, and he's going to use that to allow him to, I guess, move the command center orbital platform that was in his main by air over here to take this high yield. If he holds that high yield, if he can drop all those mules and get a couple of rounds of mules off on that, we're going to see his income skyrocket, and he'll be very comfortable just to push out. Marines only cost minerals, and you get a lot of minerals from this high yield. If Lycan does not have he doesn't have an idea that this has gone down, but due to the position, he might have an inkling that this is what Fluffy's aiming towards. If he did know, he'd push out right now. This Overseer might be used to scout, drop a changeling, maybe just take a look to see what's going on. Lycan is at max supply. He can't be waiting for the sacks. I don't know 100% what he is waiting for. It could be that he is waiting for the sacks. Maybe he wants to do a baneling drop. I don't know. Speaking of drops, we see 2 medevacs with a handful of Marines come down here. They're going to get picked off to this infestor and these spines. but unfortunately the spine's position means that the drones have to be pulled. It looks like this infestor just doesn't have quite enough energy. These guys are going to continue to cause a problem, and you can just look down at the minimap and see the units streaming in from Fluffy. Both players are now maxed. It could be that Lycan wants Fluffy to move in. He wants those siege tanks to unsiege at the same time. Maybe he just was waiting for max supply as they decide to push in those ultras. The Banelings bursting, taking down those first 3 siege tanks, no problem, but the Marines are spread out enough that the Baneling hits weren't doing too much. Some well-placed fungals up on the top to hit those medevacs as everything is forced to retreat. Fluffy loses this high-yield expansion. The orbital succeeds in taking off without taking critical damage and is going to retreat. Lycan's in a good position to swing up into that 4th. At the same time, drones are being retransferred down. It looks like that hatchery went down to the handful of Marines. Those medevacs are now carting around, dealing with 2 infestors. Fungal takes down half of them, but the other 2 succeed in being picked up by the drops, the medevacs, and taking down the other 2 infestors. Lycan pushing up into this 3rd expand, the only one that's mining currently for Fluffy. Fluffy at the same time, ballsy, takes the orbital back into position. All those infestors are incredibly exposed. Zerglings were out of position to stop Fluffy's army from pushing in. He loses a couple of precious infestors. At the same time, these Marines are still picking away down here at that expand, denying that. Those drones forced to long distance mine as Lycan just doesn't have the units currently to pick them off. Lycan is pushed back. The mining was completely stopped there for a period of time, but we can see here my mineral patch is almost completely gone. Both players' income is poop. It's just terrible, absolutely terrible. And if there's one unit that is better, and if there's one race that's good at dealing damage off of limited supply, it's Terran. Their medevacs keeping things up in high health, and their siege tanks allowing them to shell things from minimal range. Then Terran's in an excellent position. Zerg really needs to take 2 or 3 more bases in order to deal with this. Even this small army is intimidating to the cluster of Zerg that Lycan can currently shield. Infestors quickly becoming a very good choice due to their regenerating energy and disposable units. Throw down some infested Terran and fungal. On the medevacs, finally clean up that drop. 3 ultras, handful of infestors, and a bundle of Zerglings isn't going to be enough to break this, especially with 2 siege tanks in position. Lycan decides to poke in from the fortified position up top and throws down a couple of fungals on some mules, which is a great idea. Each mule is worth approximately 300 minerals, maybe more because it's high yield. And each one of those 300, that's a heck of a lot of Marines. Another hatch as Lycan decides to take the bottom left again. It's a good play. He doesn't really want to spread himself too thin with the multiple drops coming out of Fluffy. We see a Viking, which is going to be used to take out any stray overlords. Keep Lycan honest. Each overlord's worth 100 minerals, which is quite a lot of money. Money that Lycan really can't afford. He can't afford gas, though. He's got almost 5k. And you see a Spire going down, which is a good play because Zerg air is very heavy gas, and that's going to be a good way for him to dump that gas. Another good way would be a lot of infestors. Do some harassment, some burrowed infestors. There's no detection in this base at all. You could come down and just drop a metric butt ton of infested Terran right there, and that would be very effective. It would be also effective to see it up here where there are no units to deal with it, and an unrallied SCV standing idly by. All the Zerglings have gone down pretty much for Lycan's army as the Ultralisks and Infestors get pushed back by a rush of Terran infantry. It looks like he pulled everything, including mules. These guys out of position and exposed get a missed surround by the Zerglings. They could have gotten a surround on that cluster and would have dealt all of them, but as things are now, those handful of infantry units can pick down those Infestors, which is another pretty critical loss from Lycan, who's looking increasingly like he's in a desperate situation. 100 supply to 156, and Fluffy's pushing back onto his front door. At the same time, he's managed to pick up both of the expansions again, so if he can hold on for maybe 5 minutes, maybe just 3, he'll have the income to get back into this game. But as things are now, this army, if it decides to push, would be a death stroke. This is what I was talking about with those structures, those critical structures being a little bit more exposed. This army's pushing in, but if that army manages to take out the natural, then it's going to manage to take out the main. So it looks like Fluffy's going to push up here, do some heavy damage in this area. All those Zerglings get picked up in the Overlords, and they're going to be carted off, I guess, to safety, maybe as a drop on the natural. However, there is a Viking in the area, so these Overlords are going to take some damage, and if he manages to take down the ones carrying units, then that drop's effectiveness is going to be severely limited. Focus firing down the Infestors, which would be the most cost effective. Next goes the Roachwarren and the Ultralisk Cavern. Hive goes down. Drop happening down in the third for Fluffy Jr. He manages to pick up his orbital command before it does too much damage, but he does manage to lose all of his SCVs. These Zerglings rush in, try to do some structural damage. At the same time, Fluffy moving his army up, take out the spawning pool and this hatchery. Again, this was just structures that create units. There was no mining going on here, so as far as critical blow, this is not. We see a spawning pool being built here in the bottom left, and another hatchery coming up in the I guess the third for the bottom left expand. This is not enough Zerglings to take out this entire base, but it is enough to do some significant damage. Fluffy, if he keeps up on it, he'll be able to lift off all the most expensive buildings and save them, but we can see that he's gotten supply blocked, even though he doesn't have any of the money. We do see that he's got Lycan has 27 larvae, and he's got 2,700 minerals, and he's not creating any of those units. If he had those units, if he made those units, he could deal with this drop, he could deal with some of that army up in the top right corner. But as things are now, he's just not crumbling under the pressure, because this is a lot of pressure, and I wouldn't describe anybody on a master's level as crumbling, but he's taking more damage, and it's because he's not paying as much attention to his macro as he should. 44 Zerglings, there we go. It's what needs to happen. He's in a pretty desperate situation, but with some well-placed fungal growths on this army, he could do some damage. As long as Fluffy is content to sit back, get himself unsupply block, creating more units. If this spawning pool comes up, he has one already built. It looks like he's building another one just because he's afraid he's going to lose it to those Marauders, but there wasn't enough, and they weren't focus firing it down. It's still a good play, maybe not in the same base, but some infested Terran gets lobbed up. I don't think it's enough energy to... Oh, it is enough energy to throw up a fungal growth. So Fluffy does lose that completely, but very intimidating Terran armies coming in. They're going to be able to clean up this whole base, which has, again, both spawning pools, and Lycan's back in that position where he can't even make units. That's going to be difficult for him to deal with again, especially with only one other mining base. Lycan throws in the towel. Very good decision. It was an excellent game. 40 minutes, Terran versus Zerg. It's a good way to go. Spire was a great call when he made it. Maybe it came a little too late, but he just needed to find a way to spend all of his money. Waiting for Terran whenever they got this high yield. I'm not 100% sure if there was a moment where Lycan just made one decision and lost the game. I know both players played really, really well. It looks like Fluffy just out-macroed him and kept his units alive for longer, was just a little bit more economically sound, I guess is the term. I am Ibigandscary. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave a comment below and tell me how I'm doing.